A Whispered Secret. Hello, friends. My name is Alex, and I'm here to share a story that's been tucked away in my family's heart for years. It's about my grandma, a woman who always seemed so content with her simple life. But every family has its secrets, and some of them carry a quiet weight that shapes everything that comes after. Today, I want to tell you about the career my grandma sacrificed for love. It's not just a tale of what could have been. It's about choices that echo through generations, filled with love, regret, and a kind of strength that's hard to see at first. Picture this: an old photo album, dusty and forgotten in the attic. I found it one rainy afternoon, flipping through pages of black and white pictures. There was Grandma, young and vibrant, standing on a stage with a microphone in her hand. Her eyes sparkled with a dream I never knew she had. She looked like she was born to sing, to share her voice with the world. But she never did, not fully. Why? That's the secret we're unearthing today. It's a story of a promising path left behind, all for the sake of love and family. As I sat there, holding that photo, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. What dreams did she let go? How did that one decision change her life and ours? It's emotional to think about, the quiet sacrifices we make for the people we care about. And as we dive deeper, you'll see how this untold tale reveals the true cost of love. But what happened to make her choose? Keep listening, because the answer might surprise you. But before we go back to those early days, I have to tell you about the moment I discovered her hidden letters, the ones that hinted at a betrayal of her own heart. What did they say? Stay with me to find out. The early days, Grandma's hidden dream. I still remember the day I found those letters. It was a quiet Sunday, rain tapping softly on the attic window. I was helping Mum clear out some old boxes after Grandma passed. She'd been gone 6 months, and the house felt emptier without her gentle humming in the kitchen. I pulled down a small wooden box tied with faded ribbon. Inside were yellowed envelopes, addressed in neat handwriting to Miss Eleanor Hayes. That was Grandma's name before she married, Eleanor. I sat on the dusty floor and opened the first one carefully. The paper felt fragile, like it might crumble if I breathed too hard. It was dated 1952, from a man named Mr. Harold Green, manager of the Riverside Theatre Company. He wrote, "Dear Miss Hayes, your audition last week left us all speechless. Your voice has a rare warmth that touches the heart. We would be honored to offer you the lead role in our upcoming tour across the Midwest." My heart skipped. A tour? Grandma, on stage. I read on, my hands shaking a little. There were more letters, offers from radio stations, invitations to record demos in Chicago, even a note from a talent scout who'd seen her sing at a local fair. Each one praised her voice, clear, sweet, full of feeling. One said she could have been the next big thing, like Patti Page or Joe Stafford. I closed my eyes and tried to picture it. My sweet grandma, the one who baked apple pies and knitted scarves, singing on stage, standing under bright lights, singing to crowded rooms. But she never told us any of this, not once. Let me take you back to where it all began, so you can see her the way she really was before life changed everything. Grandma was born in 1928 in a small town in Illinois called Willow Creek. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest excitement was the county fair each summer. Her family didn't have much. Her dad worked at the grain mill, coming home covered in dust every evening. Her mum took in laundry to help make ends meet. They lived in a little white house with a porch that creaked and a garden where Grandma learned to grow tomatoes and roses. From the time she was tiny, Grandma loved music. Her mother said she hummed before she could talk properly. At church on Sundays, people would turn around to watch little Eleanor sing the hymns. Her voice floated above everyone else's, pure and steady. The choir director begged her parents to let her join early. By 12, she was singing solos at weddings and funerals. Folks would cry, not just because of the occasion, but because her voice made them feel things deep inside. High school was where her dream really started to grow. There was a music teacher, Mrs. Larson, who saw something special in her. She gave Grandma extra lessons after school, taught her how to breathe properly, how to hold long notes without shaking. Mrs. Larson had a record player in her classroom, and they'd listen to the great singers of the day. Grandma's eyes would shine as she soaked it all in. "Eleanor," Mrs. Larson told her one afternoon, "you have a gift. Don't keep it hidden in this small town. The world needs to hear you." Those words stayed with Grandma. She started entering talent contests at fairs and festivals. She'd wear her best dress, usually one her mother had sewn, and stand on wooden stages under string lights. People clapped and cheered. Judges gave her first-place ribbons. Word spread. Soon, scouts from bigger cities started coming to see her. By 19, she was working part-time at the local diner, saving every penny for a bus ticket to Chicago. She wanted to audition for real theaters, maybe even record a song. She practiced every night in her bedroom mirror, singing along to the radio. Her younger sister, Aunt Ruth, would sit on the bed and listen, wide-eyed. "You're going to be famous, Ellie," Ruth would whisper. Grandma would smile softly and say, "I just want to sing where people can hear me. That's all." That's when she met Grandpa, Thomas. He came into the diner one spring afternoon in 1949. Tall, quiet, with kind brown eyes and hands rough from farm work. He'd just come back from the war, helping his father on their family land just outside town. He ordered coffee and a slice of cherry pie. Grandma served him with her usual warm smile. He came back the next day, and the day after that. They started talking. Simple things at first. Weather, crops, the new songs on the radio. But soon, he'd wait until her shift ended and walk her home. He listened when she talked about her singing. He never laughed or said it was silly. He just nodded and said, "I'd like to hear you sometime." One evening, he took her to the riverbank after work. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. He was nervous, twisting his hat in his hands. "Eleanor," he said quietly, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Grandma felt her heart flutter. She liked him too, his steadiness, his gentle way. But she was also scared. Love felt big, like it could change everything. They courted slowly. Picnics on Sundays, drives in his old truck. He took her to see a traveling show once and sat beside her holding her hand the whole time. When she sang at the county fair that summer, he stood in the front row, proud as could be. Offers kept coming for her singing. More letters, more invitations. One producer even said he could get her on a national radio program if she came to the city soon. Grandma was torn. She loved the idea of the stage, the lights, the applause. But she also loved Thomas, and she loved her family. Her parents were getting older. The farm needed help. And Thomas, he talked about building a life together, a home, Children, I want you to be happy, he told her one night as they sat on her porch swing. If singing is your dream, I'll support you. But his eyes looked sad when he said it. Grandma could see he was picturing a future where she might leave, where distance could pull them apart. She wrote back to some of the offers, asking if she could do local shows instead. Most said no. The real opportunities were in the cities, on tour. You couldn't build a career staying in Willow Creek. I found one letter she never sent. It was tucked at the bottom of the box, addressed to the Riverside Theatre Company. In it, she thanked them for the offer, but said she couldn't accept. She wrote, "My heart is here now, with the man I love and the family that needs me. Singing will always be part of me, but some dreams have to make room for others." Reading those words, I felt tears on my cheeks. She was only 21, so young, so full of talent, and she chose love. But here's the part that hurts the most. She never talked about it later. Not to her children, not to us grandkids. She sang lullabies to us, hummed while cooking, joined the church choir quietly. But the big dream? She buried it deep. I asked Mum about it once, after finding the letters. Mum sighed and said, "Your grandma believed sacrifice was part of love. She never wanted us to feel guilty for the life she chose." But did she regret it? In quiet moments, did she wonder what might have been? I kept reading the letters that night in the attic. One from 1953, after she and Grandpa were married, congratulated her on her wedding and said the door would always be open if she changed her mind. She never did. They built a beautiful life together. 4 children, a cozy house, holidays full of laughter. Grandpa worked hard on the farm. Grandma raised the kids, gardened, canned vegetables, volunteered at church. She was the heart of everything. But sometimes late at night, I wonder if she stood at the kitchen window washing dishes and heard a song on the radio that made her pause. Did her heart ache just a little? As the years passed, her voice stayed lovely. She sang at our birthdays, at Christmas. We all begged her to. But she always waved it off, saying, "Oh, it's nothing special." Now I know it was everything special, and she gave it away for love. But there was one letter I haven't told you about yet. The one from 1954, written in Grandma's own handwriting, addressed to herself. It started with the words, "If you're reading this, you're wondering if you made the right choice." What did the rest say, and why did she hide it so carefully? Keep listening, because the next part will break your heart a little more. The letter to herself. Quiet doubts begin. I sat there in the attic a little longer that night, the rain still falling softly outside. My fingers trembled as I pulled out the last envelope, the one written in Grandma's own careful handwriting. No stamp, no address on the front, just her name, Eleanor Hayes Thomas. She had added Grandpa's last name after they married, but crossed it out lightly, like she wasn't sure. The paper felt heavier than the others, even though it was the same kind. I opened it slowly. The date at the top was June 12th, 1954. Their first child, my mum, was only a few months old. Grandma would have been 26. The letter began, "If you were reading this someday, Eleanor, it means you are wondering if you made the right choice, wondering if the quiet life you picked is enough. I am writing this tonight while the baby sleeps and Thomas is out checking the fields. The house is still and my heart feels loud." I stopped breathing for a second. She was talking to herself, to the future version of herself. I read on, my voice barely a whisper in the empty attic. I said yes to love. I said yes to this beautiful man who looks at me like I am his whole world. I said yes to a home, to children, to staying close to mum and dad. But tonight the radio played a song I used to sing at the fairs, and for a moment I couldn't move. I stood at the sink with soap on my hands, and I felt something ache inside. Not anger, not regret exactly, just a quiet missing. Tears filled my eyes. I could picture her so clearly, standing in that little kitchen. Moonlight coming through the window. Baby monitor quiet for once. Alone with her thoughts. She went on. People keep saying I make a noble choice. That family is more important than fame. And I believe that. I do. When Thomas comes in tired and smiles at me, or when I hold our daughter, I know I chose something real. But dreams don't just disappear because you turn away from them. They wait in the corners of your heart. They whisper on quiet nights. I wiped my face and kept reading. I almost wrote back to Mr. Green last winter. He sent another kind note after hearing I had a baby, said the offer still stood for local radio work, nothing big, just weekends. Thomas said he wouldn't mind. He really meant it. But I thought of travelling even that little bit, leaving the baby, leaving the farm work to him alone, and I said no again. I told myself it was for the family. Maybe it was. Maybe part of it was fear, too. Fear that if I stepped back on a stage, I'd remember how much I loved it. And then what? My chest felt tight. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She was just honest with herself in a way she couldn't be with anyone else. The letter ended like this. One day our children will grow up, hearing only the simple story. Mummy sings because she loves it, not because she almost had a career. They won't know about the letters or the offers. And that's all right. I don't want them to feel they cost me something. But if you're reading this years from now, and you still wonder, know this. I chose love every single day. Some days it was easy. Some days it was harder. But I never stopped choosing it. Be gentle with yourself, Eleanor. You did your best with a full heart. She signed it simply, with love, me. I folded the letter and held it against my chest. The attic felt colder suddenly. All those years, Grandma carried this quiet conversation inside her. She never let it spill out into blame or sadness that we could see. She just kept choosing love, day after day. But the doubts didn't stay only in that one letter. As the years went on, small moments started to show the weight she carried. Not big fights. Grandma wasn't the type for that. Just little things that added up, like drops in a bucket. When my mum was little, Grandma joined the church choir again. She loved singing hymns, loved the harmony with other voices. But one Sunday, a visitor from the city heard her solo and came up afterward. "You have a beautiful gift," the woman said. "Have you ever thought of doing more with it?" Grandma smiled politely and answered, "Oh, I just sing for the joy of it now. Family keeps me busy." Mum remembered that day. She was only 6, holding Grandma's hand. She said Grandma's grip tightened just a little when the woman walked away. Another time in the early 1960s, a local radio station started a weekly talent hour. They asked around town for singers. Several people told the host about Grandma. He came to the house one Saturday with a small recorder. "Mrs. Thomas," he said kindly, "folks say you have the prettiest voice in 3 counties. Would you record one song for us, just for fun?" Grandpa was there, rocking on the porch. He looked at Grandma with gentle eyes and said, "Up to you, Ellie. I think it'll be nice." For a moment, Her face lit up, the same sparkle I saw in those old photos. She almost said yes, but then my uncle started crying inside, and the baby needed feeding, and supper was on the stove. She thanked the man, told him maybe another time. He left politely, but he never came back. Mum said Grandma hummed the song she would have recorded for the rest of the day, softly, almost to herself. The bucket filled a little more. There were money worries too. The farm didn't always do well. Drought one year, bad prices the next. Grandpa worked long hours. Grandma took in sewing and sold baked goods at the market. She never complained. But sometimes, late at night, she and Grandpa would talk quietly in the kitchen. I know this because Aunt Ruth told me. She was the youngest and sometimes pretended to sleep so she could listen. One night, she heard Grandma say, "If I'd taken even the radio work years ago, we might have a little extra saved now. For the kids' schooling, for repairs." Grandpa's voice was soft. "Ellie, don't do that to yourself. We're making it, and I wouldn't trade our life for anything." Grandma answered, "I know, I wouldn't either. I just think about it sometimes." Silence after that. Then the sound of chairs scraping as he pulled her into a hug. No anger, no blame. Just two people carrying a life together, feeling the weight in different ways. As the children grew, Grandma poured everything into them. School plays, recitals, sports. She was at every event, clapping loudest. But when my mum sang in the school choir, Grandma's eyes would get misty. Not just proud tears, something deeper. Mum asked her once, "Why do you look sad when I sing, Mama?" Grandma touched her cheek and said, "Not sad, darling, just remembering how much music can hold inside it." Mum didn't understand then. She does now. By the 1970s, the world had changed. Women were doing more, working, traveling, chasing dreams even after marriage. Grandma watched it all on the little television in the living room. Sometimes a singer would come on, someone who started late or came back after raising children. Grandma would watch quietly, hands folded in her lap. Grandpa noticed. One evening he said, "Ellie, if you ever want to try again, lessons, local shows, anything, I'll be right there cheering." She smiled at him, the same soft smile she always had. "We're grandparents now, Thomas. Time for new dreams, not old ones." But I wonder if she meant it completely. The bucket was almost full. Then came the year everything tipped, just a little. It was 1985. Grandpa had a mild heart scare, not serious, but enough to slow him down. The doctor said rest, lighter work. Money got tighter. The kids were grown and starting their own families, but college loans and weddings still needed help. A new community theatre opened 2 towns over. They announced tryouts for a big musical, something happy with lots of singing roles. The director was someone Grandma had known slightly years before. He called the house personally. "Eleanor," he said over the phone, "I remember your voice from the old days. We'd love to have you audition. Even a small part, it would mean a lot to folks around here." Grandpa was listening from the kitchen. When she hung up, he said gently, "You should go. I'll drive you. We'll make it work." For the first time, Grandma's eyes filled with tears in front of him. "I'm 57 years old, Thomas," she said quietly. "I have arthritis in my hands. My voice isn't what it was. And who would take care of you? The house? The garden?" He took her hand. "We'd figure it out. You deserve to sing again, Ellie. Really sing." They sat together a long time that night. No one knows exactly what was said after the children left the room. But Grandma did not audition. The next week, she packed away her old sheet music in a box. She told Mum it was just to make space. But Mum saw her pause over each page, touching the notes like old friends. That was the closest the quiet doubts ever came to the surface. After that, Grandma seemed to settle deeper into her life. She sang lullabies to us grandkids. She led the church choir for 20 more years. She baked, gardened, loved fiercely. No one heard another word about the past. But the letter to herself stayed hidden. And the ache, I think, stayed too. Just gentler, softer, like a bruise that never quite goes away. I closed the box that night in the attic and carried it downstairs. Mum was asleep. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one Grandma used, and thought about all the meals she made here, all the conversations, all the silent moments when a song on the radio made her pause. Love won, every time, but it cost something precious. And the story wasn't over yet. Because 20 years later, when Grandma was in her late 70s, something unexpected arrived in the mail. An invitation that would force her to face the dream one last time. What was it? And would she finally say yes? Keep listening, because the next part holds the deepest emotion of all. The unexpected invitation, facing the past. The attic felt like it held its breath that night. I sat with Grandma's letter in my lap, the words blurring through my tears. It was past midnight when I finally went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Her voice, soft, honest, echoed in my head. All those quiet choices, the way she pushed her dream deeper inside to make room for love. I wondered how many nights she lay awake like that, listening to the house settle, feeling the pull of what might have been. The next morning, I showed the letter to Mum over coffee. Her eyes grew wide, then soft with that same ache I felt. She never let on, Mum said quietly, folding the paper like it was something fragile. Not even to me. Your grandma had this way of carrying things alone, so we wouldn't have to. We talked for hours that day about the farm, the kids, the life she built. Mum shared stories I'd never heard, little glimpses into the tensions that simmered under the surface. Not big storms, but steady rains that wore at the edges of her peace. It helped me see how the doubts didn't just fade. They wove into the fabric of her days, making some moments heavier than others. As the 1980s turned into the 1990s, Grandma and Grandpa entered their golden years. The farm was paid off, the children grown and scattered, but close in heart. Grandkids like me filled the house with noise on weekends, running through the fields, helping with chores, begging for her stories and songs. She was our anchor, steady and warm, with a laugh that crinkled her eyes. But the world kept spinning, and with it came changes that tugged at her old wounds. Grandpa retired fully in 1992. He was 74, she 74 too. They talked about traveling, maybe a trip to see the ocean, something simple. But his health lingered from that heart scare years before. Nothing dire, just enough to keep them close to home. Grandma didn't mind. She filled their days with small joys. Morning walks down the dirt road, afternoon puzzles by the window, evenings with the radio tuned low. One change that hit harder was the music itself. The songs she grew up loving shifted. The radio played more rock, more pop, faster, louder. Her favourites, those gentle ballads from the 1940s and 50s, faded into oldies hours late at night. She'd listen sometimes, alone after Grandpa went to bed, and Mum said she could tell when a familiar tune came on. Grandma would sit still, eyes distant, like she was back on that wooden stage under the fair lights. "I miss the simplicity," she confessed to Mum once, during a rare moment of openness. They were canning peaches in the kitchen, steam rising from the pots. Mom paused, wiping her hands on her apron. "What do you mean, Mama?" Grandma stirred the fruit slowly. "The way music used to wrap around you, like a hug. Now it's all rush and noise. Makes me feel out of step." Mom hugged her then, not saying much, but she saw the sadness linger, like a shadow after the sun goes down. The grandkids brought some light back. Me, my cousins, we adored her voice. At family gatherings, we'd plead, "Sing for us, Grandma, just one song." She'd blush and say, "Oh, you don't want my old voice creaking along." But she'd give in, picking something soft like "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" or a hymn we all knew. Her tone was still clear, rich with years of feeling. We'd quiet down, mesmerized. One Christmas in 1995, I was 12. We were all there, uncles, aunts, cousins crammed around the table. After dinner, someone handed Grandma a guitar Grandpa had bought her years before, dusty in the closet. "Play something, Ellie," he said with a wink. She strummed a few chords, hesitant at first. Then she sang Silent Night, her voice filling the room like warm light. We all joined in, but it was her that held us. When she finished, there was a hush. My cousin Sarah, only 8, climbed into her lap and whispered, "You should be on TV, Grandma, like the singers we see." Grandma's smile faltered just a second. She kissed Sarah's forehead and said, "TV's for young folks with big dreams, sweetie. I'm happy right here." Grandpa caught her eye across the room. He nodded, proud but knowing. Later, when the kids were in bed, Mom overheard them talking. "You were beautiful tonight," he said, his hand on hers. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "It felt good, but it's enough now, Thomas. It has to be." He squeezed her hand. "It's whatever you say it is, love." No more was said, but Mom saw Grandma tuck the guitar away the next day, higher on the shelf. The real tension started building in 2002. Grandma was 74. No, wait, let me get the year straight. She was born in 1928, so 2002 made her 74. Time slips like that when you're telling these stories. Anyway, that's when the town began talking about a big anniversary celebration for Willow Creek. It was the town's 150th year. Festivals, parades, a talent showcase to honor local folks who'd made a mark. The committee reached out to old-timers, asking for stories, photos, performances. Someone, probably Mrs. Larson's daughter, who'd taken over the school music program, mentioned Grandma. Before long, the head of the committee, a man named Mr. Ellis, who ran the hardware store, stopped by the house with a folder full of plans. "Eleanor," he said, sitting at their kitchen table with a cup of her coffee, "we're putting together a night of music from the town's heart. Hymns, folk tunes, a bit of everything. Your name came up more than once. Folks remember your voice from way back. Would you consider singing a number or two? It'd be special." Grandpa was in the living room, pretending to read the paper, but Mom knew he was listening. Grandma poured more coffee, her hands steady, but her eyes thoughtful. "That's kind of you, Jim," she said. "But I'm not sure I'm up for it. The arthritis acts up, and my range isn't what it used to be." Mr. Ellis leaned in, gentle but persistent. "It's not about perfection, Eleanor. It's about sharing what made this town sing. Think it over. No pressure." He left a flyer with the date, late summer, under tents by the river. Grandma set it on the counter and went back to her weeding. But that night, she didn't sleep well. Grandpa found her in the kitchen at dawn, staring at the flyer. "You don't have to," he murmured, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She looked up, her face tired but soft. I know, but part of me wonders, what if I did, just once, for the town? He sat beside her. Then do it. I'll be in the front row, same as always. They let it sit. Days turned to weeks. Mum visited and saw the flyer still there, now with little notes scribbled in the margins, song ideas, breathing reminders from her old lessons. Grandma was practicing in the shower, Mum said, softly so no one would hear. But then the doubts crept back in. What if her voice cracked? What if people whispered about the girl who could have been big but chose the farm? What if it stirred up too much, made her question the quiet life she'd built? She called Mr. Ellis a month before the event. I appreciate the thought, she told him, her voice calm over the phone. But I'll pass this time. Let a younger voice take the stage. He sounded disappointed but understanding. The offer's always open, Eleanor. You're a legend here, whether you sing or not. She hung up and busied herself with supper. Grandpa didn't push. He just held her a little closer that night. The celebration came and went. We all went as a family. Picnics, games, fireworks. A young girl from the high school sang one of Grandma's old fair songs. Grandma clapped politely, but Mum saw her fingers tap the rhythm on her knee, like she was singing inside. That could have been you, my uncle joked later, half teasing. Grandma smiled faintly. No, dear, that's her time now. The bucket of quiet tensions filled another drop. Life kept its steady rhythm after that. Grandkids grew up, me off to college, cousins starting jobs and families. Grandma and Grandpa celebrated 50 years married in 1999. A small party at the church. She sang for them then, a love song she'd written words to years before. Her voice trembled a bit, but the emotion made it stronger. We all cried a little. Grandpa passed in 2005, peacefully, in his sleep. He was 77. The farm felt too big without him. Grandma moved slower after that, the light in her eyes dimmer. She kept the house going, gardened less, but read more, joined a book club at the library. Singing? Only at church, and softer now. We worried. Mum especially. She's holding it all in, Mum told me on the phone. Like always. I visited more, bringing my guitar sometimes. We'd sit on the porch and I'd play while she hummed along. One afternoon, emboldened by the sun, I asked, Grandma, why didn't you ever try again? After Grandpa retired, or even now? She looked out at the fields, her hands folded in her lap. A long pause. Oh, Alex, she said finally, her voice like a sigh. It wasn't one thing. It was all of it. The babies, the bills, the days that filled up before you knew it. And Thomas, he deserved my whole self here, not half in some other life. Did you ever wish? I trailed off, scared to push. She turned to me, eyes clear. Every choice has its shadow, dear. But I don't regret the love. That's what carried me. We sat quiet after that. But I saw the shadow she meant, the quiet ache that never quite left. Then in 2006, 20 years after that community theatre call, when she was 78, something unexpected arrived in the mail. It was a thick envelope, postmarked from Chicago. No return address at first glance, but elegant paper inside. Mum brought it over during one of her visits, handing it to Grandma with a curious look. What's this? Mum asked. Grandma opened it slowly, her glasses perched on her nose. Inside was a letter on heavy stock, along with a program and a train ticket stub, old, preserved. Dear Mrs. Thomas, it began. My name is Margaret Green. I am the daughter of Harold Green, who managed the Riverside Theatre Company in the 1950s. My father passed last year, and in sorting his papers, we found your correspondence and his deep admiration for your talent. He often spoke of you as the voice that got away, the one who chose heart over spotlight. Grandma's hand went to her mouth. Mum and I exchanged glances. I was visiting too, sitting nearby. ... The letter continued. We are hosting a retrospective gala in Chicago next month, honoring the unsung artists of that era. It's small, intimate for family and friends of those who shaped the stage behind the scenes. Father left a note in his will. If possible, invite Eleanor Hayes. He believed you belong there, even now. Would you join us? No performance required, unless your heart calls you to it. But know this, your choice inspired him always. Attached was a photo. Young Grandma on that stage, mid-song, radiant. And below it, the simple line, "The door remains open." The room went still. Grandma held the letter, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not loud sobs, just quiet, like rain on glass. Mom reached for her. "Mama, what do you think?" Grandma folded the paper gently. "I don't know. Chicago. After all this time." I felt my throat tighten. Here it was, the invitation that could crack everything open. Would she go? Face the past, the what-ifs, or let it stay buried, safe in memory? We sat with it for days. Family calls poured in. Uncles, aunts, all stunned, excited. "Go, Mum," one said. "It's your moment." Grandpa's absence hung heavy. She talked to him out loud sometimes, standing by his chair. "What would you say, Thomas? Should I take the train?" Mom stayed over, helping sort feelings. "It's not too late," she whispered one night. "You're still you. Your voice is still magic." But the tensions rose like a slow tide. Neighbors heard and dropped by with stories. "Remember when you sang at my wedding? Changed my life." The church ladies baked pies, urging her on. Even the local paper ran a small piece. Willow Creek's hidden star considers the spotlight again. Grandma smiled through it all, but inside the doubt swirled. Her hands shook more now, age catching up. What if she got there and froze? What if it hurt too much, seeing what she'd left behind? And the farm, the empty house, could she leave it, even for a weekend? One evening, as the sun set red over the fields, she called us together. Me, Mum, Aunt Ruth. We sat at the kitchen table, the letter between us like a living thing. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice steady but soft, "about that girl in the photos, the one with the dreams. She's still in here somewhere." She touched her chest. "But so is the woman who chose this life. The mother, the wife, the grandma. How do I honor both?" We listened, hearts full. Ruth took her hand. "By going, Mama. See it through, for you." Grandma nodded slowly. "Maybe, but it scares me. What if it opens a door I closed for a reason?" The air felt thick with unspoken fears. The betrayal of her own heart, all those years ago, choosing love over self. Was this a second chance, or a reminder of the cost? She didn't decide that night. We left her with tea and quiet. But as I hugged her goodbye, she whispered, "Thank you for listening, Alex. Sometimes saying it out loud makes it real." Driving home, I couldn't shake it. The invitation had stirred the pot, bringing all the old tensions to the surface. Would she go? Would it heal or hurt more? And then, a week later, another letter came. This one from Margaret Green herself, handwritten. It shared stories of her father's regrets, how he'd watched careers bloom and fade, but always said Grandma's choice was the bravest. "Come," it ended. "Let us celebrate the life you built. It's the real legacy." Grandma read it alone, then called Mum in tears. I think I'll go." But as plans took shape, train tickets, address from the attic, the quiet fears grew. Whispers from town. "Too old? What if she forgets the words? Even from family, gentle but there. Are you sure, Mama? It's a long trip. She pushed on, but I saw the strain. The way she practiced alone, voice cracking on high notes. The arthritis in her fingers made holding sheet music hard. And nights, she paced, wondering if love's price was worth revisiting. The day before she left, we gathered again. She looked at us, eyes shining. "Wish me courage," she said. We did. Hugs, promises to call. As she boarded the train the next morning, waving from the window, her face held a mix. Hope, fear, that old quiet strength. I wondered what Chicago would bring. A warm welcome, or the sharp edge of what might have been. Little did we know the trip would uncover one more layer. A conversation that would change everything. But on the train ride there, Grandma found something tucked in her bag. A note from Grandpa, written years before. That she'd never seen. What did it say? And how would it tip the scales? Keep listening, because the turning point is almost here, and it's more emotional than you can imagine. The train ride home. Grandpa's hidden note. The train pulled out of Willow Creek Station slowly, like it didn't want to leave either. I stood on the platform with Mum and Aunt Ruth, waving until Grandma's face became a small blur in the window. She looked small in her navy coat, the one she always saved for special days, but her chin was up, eyes bright with a mix of nerves and something like hope. We watched until the train disappeared around the bend, then walked back to the car in silence. None of us knew what the next few days would bring. Grandma settled into her seat by the window, the envelope from Margaret Green resting in her lap. She had packed light, just a small suitcase, her favourite hymn book, and the old photo of herself on stage. The carriage was quiet, mostly older folks heading to the city for appointments or visits. She watched the fields roll by, the same fields she had known all her life. Cornstalks dry in the late autumn light, silos standing tall against the sky. Every mile felt like peeling back another layer of time. She opened her bag to find her glasses case. That's when she felt something stiff in the side pocket, a folded piece of paper she didn't remember packing. Her heart gave a little jump. The handwriting was Grandpa's, strong, steady letters she would know anywhere. She unfolded it carefully, breath catching. The note was short, written on the back of an old grocery list, dated 10 years earlier, 1996. Grandpa must have slipped it into her bag years ago, maybe during one of their little trips, and she had never noticed. "Ellie, my love," it began, "if you ever find yourself on a train, heading towards something that scares you a little, read this. I know you. I know the quiet way you carry things inside. You think I don't see the moments when a song on the radio makes you pause, or when you look at the old sheet music and your fingers move like they remember. I see it all. I never wanted you to give up your voice for me. I wanted you to have both, our life and your dream. But you chose us every day, and I never knew how to thank you enough. You made our home warm, our children strong, our days full of love. That's more than any stage could give. This trip is you finally stepping toward that old dream, even just to look at it again. Go with my blessing. Sing if your heart says yes. Don't sing if it hurts. But know this, I am proud of you. Then, now, always. You didn't lose anything by choosing us. You gave us everything. Come home when you're ready. I'll be waiting with coffee and that smile you love. Forever yours, Thomas. Grandma pressed the note to her chest. Tears came fast and quiet, sliding down her cheeks as the train rocked gently. She didn't make a sound. Just sat there, holding his words like they were the warmest thing in the world. All those years he had known. He had carried her quiet ache too, and never once made her feel guilty for it. He had loved her enough to let her dream live in the background, safe and unspoken. She read the note 3 times, tracing each letter with her finger. Then she folded it small and tucked it into the pocket over her heart. Something shifted inside her, soft, like a knot finally loosening. For the first time in decades, she didn't feel divided. The girl who sang on fair stages and the woman who chose family weren't fighting anymore. They were the same person, just walking different paths that led to the same place. The train journey took most of the day. She watched the landscape change. Flat fields giving way to small towns, then suburbs, then the city skyline rising in the distance. Chicago looked bigger than she remembered, taller, louder. But she wasn't afraid now. Grandpa's note was like a hand on her shoulder. When she stepped off at Union Station, Margaret Green was waiting. A kind woman in her 60s, silver hair, warm smile. She hugged Grandma gently, like they were old friends. "Mrs. Thomas, Eleanor, I can't tell you how much this means," Margaret said. "My father would be so happy you came." They took a taxi to the hotel, a small, elegant place near the theatre district. Margaret talked the whole way. Stories about her father, how he kept Grandma's audition photo on his desk for years, how he told anyone who'd listen that some artists shine brightest when they choose love over fame. At the hotel, Grandma rested a little, then practiced in her room. She sang softly at first, testing her voice. It wasn't as strong as it used to be. Age had taken some of the high notes, the breath control. But the warmth was still there. The feeling that wrapped around every word. She sang "You'll Never Walk Alone," the song she had planned to record back in 1952 if she'd gone to Chicago the first time. Her voice filled the small room, steady and full of heart. That evening, the gala was held in a restored theatre. Dim lights, velvet seats, a small stage with a single microphone. Only about 50 people. Family of the old theatre folks, a few musicians, journalists who loved the history. No pressure, no spotlights, just a gathering to remember. Margaret introduced Grandma last. "Tonight we honour a woman who chose a different kind of stage," she said. Eleanor Hayes Thomas, whose voice touched my father's heart more than 60 years ago. She never needed fame to be extraordinary. But tonight, if she wishes, we'd love to hear her. The room went quiet. Grandma stood slowly, smoothed her dress, and walked to the microphone. Her hands trembled just a little. She looked out at the faces, strangers but kind. She thought of Grandpa's note, of the fields back home, of all the lullabies she sang to her babies. She leaned in and spoke softly. "I haven't stood on a stage like this in a very long time. I'm not sure what to say, except thank you for remembering me, and for letting an old woman sing one more time." She closed her eyes, took a breath, and sang. It wasn't perfect. A note wavered here, a breath came short there. But oh, the emotion. Every word carried 50 years of living, of love given freely, of dreams held gently, of a life chosen with open hands. She sang Amazing Grace, simple and slow. The room listened like it was holding its breath. When she finished, there was no wild applause at first, just a hush, then soft Heartfelt clapping that grew and grew. People came up afterward, some with tears. One older man, a retired singer, took her hand and said, "You didn't miss anything, dear. You lived the biggest song of all." Margaret hugged her tight. "Dad would have cried," she whispered. "He always said your choice was the bravest performance he ever saw." Grandma smiled through her own tears. I needed to hear that. That night, in her hotel room, she called home. Mum answered on the first ring. "Mama, how was it?" Grandma's voice was calm, warm, lighter than it had been in years. "It was beautiful, sweetheart. I sang, and it felt right. Not like I was chasing something lost, more like I was closing a circle." We all talked, me on speaker, Aunt Ruth too. She told us about the note from Grandpa. We cried together, laughed a little, felt the weight lift just a bit. "I'm coming home tomorrow," she said. "I've seen what I needed to see. Now I want to be back where I belong." The train ride back was different. She watched the city fade, then the suburbs, then the open land again. She held Grandpa's note in her hand the whole way. When the train pulled into Willow Creek, we were all there. Mum, me, cousins, even neighbors who had heard the story. She stepped down, looked at us, and smiled the biggest, softest smile. "I'm home," she said simply. That moment, the turning point, wasn't about fame or regret. It was about peace. She had faced the past, honored the dream, and come back whole. No betrayal of her heart, just a gentle reunion with the girl she used to be. But even then, the story wasn't quite finished. Because in the days that followed, something small and wonderful began to happen. Something that would touch our family in ways we never expected. Back home, Grandma started receiving letters from people who had been at the gala. Letters that carried a surprise she never saw coming. What was inside them? And how would they change the last chapter of her life? Stay with me, because the resolution is full of quiet joy and one final beautiful gift. The letters that kept coming. A quiet legacy unfolds. Grandma stepped off that train and into our arms like she had come back from more than just Chicago. She looked the same, silver hair neat under her scarf, coat buttoned against the November chill. But there was a softness in her eyes, a lightness in her step that hadn't been there before. We hugged her for a long time on the platform, no one rushing to speak. When we finally pulled away, she touched each of our faces gently, one by one, and said, "I'm all right now, truly." That evening, we gathered at the old house. Mum made her favorite chicken soup, the one with thick noodles and carrots from the garden. Aunt Ruth brought apple pie. I set the table with the good dishes, the ones Grandma saved for holidays. We sat around the kitchen table, steam rising from our bowls, and listened as she told us about the gala. Quietly, without hurry. She spoke of the small theatre, the warm lights, the faces that looked at her, not with pity, but with respect. She told us how her voice shook at first, then settled, like it remembered where it belonged. She read Grandpa's note aloud to us, her voice catching only once. When she finished, the room was still. Mum reached across and squeezed her hand. "You sang for him, didn't you?" Mum whispered. Grandma nodded. "For him, for me, for all of us." We didn't talk about regret that night. We talked about love. How it doesn't always look grand. How sometimes it looks like staying. Like choosing the same person every morning for 56 years. The next few days were gentle. Grandma moved through the house slowly, putting things in their places, watering the plants by the window. She hummed more than usual, old hymns, bits of songs from the radio. One afternoon, I found her in the living room, the guitar in her lap again. She was strumming softly, eyes closed. "Play something for me," I asked from the doorway. She opened her eyes and smiled. "Only if you sing with me." We sang together, an old folk tune she loved. Her voice thin in places, mine young and unsure, but it felt right, like passing something precious from hand to hand. Then the letters started arriving. The first one came 3 days after she got home. A cream envelope, Chicago postmark. Inside was a handwritten note from Margaret Green. "Dear Eleanor, the evening meant more to us than I can say. Your song touched every heart in that room. Enclosed is something my father kept all these years, a recording of your audition from 1952. The tape was fragile, but we had it restored. Listen when you're ready, and know you are never forgotten. With gratitude, Margaret."